Introducing the award-winning Pod 4 Ultra from 8 Sleep, a high-tech mattress cover you can easily add to your existing mattress. The pod changes the temperature of your mattress. You can set it anywhere from 55 to 110 degrees, letting you and your partner set different temperatures on each side. I keep mine at 60 so that I don't get hot. It can also adjust the position of your mattress to reduce snoring, and you get 30 days to try and decide if you love it. Go to 8sleep.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman to get $350 off your Pod 4 Ultra. The link is in the description. Welcome to the show. Several weeks ago, I did a story about math, multiplying decimals. The story was called, "Is Something Very Wrong with the Country?" And surprisingly, to a degree, a story about basic math got almost 1 million views and generated hundreds of emails from folks all across the country saying, I teach middle school, I teach high school, I teach college, and they don't know basic math. They are completely dependent on calculators, and conceptually something very bad is happening here. And my interest in that story was essentially, if such basic skills are missing, of course we can't expect American voters to meaningfully engage with nuanced and complicated arguments about tariffs or climate change or whatever. Sort of like, if education is failing this badly, why do we end up shocked that people fall for Facebook disinformation propaganda articles? Well, I have another example of this that I want to talk about today, and it goes very much to one of the sort of en vogue topics right now, which is raw milk, raw dairy. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. nominated for Secretary of Health and Human Services. What about vaccines? What about hydroxychloroquine? What about red dye? All this sort of stuff. What we're going to look at here is a conversation involving content creator Dr. Ids and a gentleman who goes by the name Metabolic Mike. Now, let me kind of set this up for you. A talking point that's spreading is we know raw milk isn't really dangerous because most hospitalizations for foodborne illness come from other foods, not from raw dairy. They come either from pasteurized dairy or fresh vegetables, as Donald Trump says, or meat or something else. And there's really two issues here that are important to contend with. And again, our approach is, if people don't even understand what I'm about to explain, how can they meaningfully assess the risk of raw dairy? There's two issues. Number one is that milk is primarily connected, raw milk is primarily connected to listeria. Dairy in general is connected to listeria. So looking at salmonella or other things, it's kind of deceptive if what we want to focus in on is raw versus pasteurized dairy. But the really deceptive part that you're going to see in this video is that way more people are eating raw vegetables than dairy. So to understand the relative risk, you have to first consider that the number of people having the raw vegetables is so much bigger than the number of people having raw milk that you have to account for that. And I'll give you an example and then we'll watch the video. If 1 million people eat vegetables daily, and 10,000 people consume raw milk daily, and half the hospitalizations come from the vegetables, but 5% of the hospitalizations come from the milk, even though the numbers are lower as a share of hospitalizations for the raw milk, relatively speaking, the raw milk is way more dangerous. And I probably didn't even explain that well, but here is a really good clip from Tic Tac with Dr. Ids sort of respectfully debating this guy who goes by the name Metabolic Mike. And to Metabolic Mike's credit, he acknowledges at the end of this short clip the error in his analysis where he goes, hey, foodborne illness from fresh vegetables is way more common. So let's take a look.
Look at the data from both the CDC and the FDA. Dairy as a whole is not the leading cause of foodborne illness. And we're categorizing unpasteurized dairy in that, leafy vegetables contribute to 49% of the hospitalizations.
It's about 1% of the US adult population report consuming some form of raw dairy once a week, not daily, once a week. That's from Lando et al. In 2022. Over 25% of US adults consume one portion of leafy green veg a day. So a quarter consume leafy green veg every day. 1% of adults consume some form of raw dairy once a week. So that's a huge difference. Yeah. Using the absolute numbers for something for two different populations where one number is drastically smaller is actually not going to inform the public as to their relative risk of illness. Right. In 2014, there's a literature review which I cited 2 videos ago. The authors looked at over, I think it was 121 infectious outbreaks. They estimated that raw dairy consumption holds a 150 times greater risk versus pasteurized dairy. Can you concede to the fact that it's an objective fact that raw dairy is at least 50 times more dangerous than pasteurized dairy?
Yeah, I believe that.
Fine.
Yeah.
So Metabolic Mike says, yeah, you're right. Now, why is this so relevant to politics? Why is this so relevant to RFK Jr. and MAHA, Make America Healthy Again? How can we in any way value the people online who show up and say raw milk is perfectly fine if they don't even understand the base rate comparison? If 1% of the population is having raw milk once a week, and 25% of the population is having raw vegetables every day, so it's 25% versus 1%, 7 times a week versus once a week, you have to account for that staggeringly lopsided base rate to then be able to say, on a use-adjusted basis, which is actually more dangerous. Now, you might get the real numbers, understand the real numbers, and say, hey, you know what? I am willing to accept that risk. The risk of getting foodborne illness from raw milk rather than spinach is 50 or 100 or 150 times higher. And I'm okay with that because it still feels low enough, or I just love that sweet, sweet raw milk first thing in the morning and I'm willing to accept. But if you can't even conceptualize the relative risk, of what use is your confidence that it's not really so risky that you should be worried about yourself or your kids or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. pushing it? Now, I'll even concede to you, the raw milk part isn't even really the most concerning one. I would say that the data around vaccine safety, similarly, with people not understanding base rate differences and all of these different things, with all of this stuff, if we don't have a shared basis in fact, and the fact comes, of course, from understanding the data, the conversations are largely a waste of time. And if you look on the internet, you will see that indeed the conversations about these issues are a big waste of time when half the population or more doesn't even understand the numbers. If you understand the numbers, now we can have an informed conversation about the risk we're willing to accept. And one other note on this. If the relative risk stuff is interesting to you, a year ago, 2 years ago, I interviewed a professor who specializes in, are we able to accurately assess risk as humans? Baruch Fishoff is his name. Check out that interview if you find this stuff interesting. Really nice job there by Dr. Ids, plainly laying it out and getting Metabolic Mike to acknowledge, yeah, the raw milk is at least 50 times as dangerous. That's true. All right, Mark Zuckerberg continues to push Facebook towards being a tool of the MAGA agenda. The latest news is that Meta, the parent company of Facebook, is moving its content moderation team from California to the state of Texas, where Mark Zuckerberg says there is going to be a lower degree of concern about the moderation teams being biased. So put it all together. Yesterday, I told you that big Trump supporter Dana White will be joining the board of directors of Meta. His only qualification is that Mark Zuckerberg is really into ultimate fighting right now. That's the only qualification for Dana White. On Friday's show, we will talk about Facebook ending its fact-checking program. They're just going to end it. They're no longer going to do fact checks. Mark Zuckerberg saying, yeah, the whole fact-checking thing, it turned out it was like kind of biased in a way. Of course, very friendly decision to Donald Trump. And then now we learn that Facebook is going to be moving its content moderation team from California to Texas. I will let Mark Zuckerberg explain it. You will notice that Mark Zuckerberg increasingly looking like Dave Portnoy, interestingly enough, quite a look he's got going. Here is Mark Zuckerberg explaining it. Take a listen.
Hey everyone. I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people.
All right, so you get the point. So here's the sort of like totality of what's in the works. They're going to ditch the human fact checkers in favor of these community notes. This is very much going in the direction of what Twitter has done. This is certainly going to cut corners. It exploits the free labor of users, and it is very much friendly to MAGA. It will strip away protections on hot button issues like immigration and identity politics. Zuck says that the way they were doing it is just out of touch with the mainstream. In other words, this is another handout to MAGA and to Trumpism. They are pandering to Trump's grievance culture. And then, of course, they're going to move their trust and safety teams from California to Texas. They'll benefit from seemingly a friendlier political climate, maybe some tax perks. And it's important to know that, this kind of like free speech crusade of Zuck, focusing on the battle against censorship, when the right wingers focus in on we are for free speech, what they've tended to mean over the last several years is I want to say anything, be it xenophobic, racist, anti-Semitic, anti-immigrant. I want to be able to say anything with zero consequences and repercussions. And that includes zero consequences from the platforms and zero consequences socially. That's another thing. They insist that any consequences to their speech are a limitation of their speech, when the reality is the consequences to speech are also someone else's free speech. The timing of this is really difficult to ignore. Zuck has seen how X and Elon Musk, thanks to X's new moderation policies, X's new content policies, and Musk dumping in $250 million to Trump's campaign, has made X extraordinarily popular among the right, and it has given Elon Musk direct access to Donald Trump. You'll recall that Trump said during his first term, Zuck would show up and ask me for goodies and blah, blah, blah. Sort of negatively, pejoratively. Zuck wants to be more like Elon. He sees what is going on with these platforms. He wants a seat at the table, and so he's appeasing Donald Trump. Maybe he gets a tax cut. Maybe he gets a pat on the back from Trump's Republican Party, but this is really about being in the Dana White friendship and the entire thing. Increasingly, we just have to acknowledge Facebook is going the way of Twitter. That's it. It's going the way of Twitter. We have to understand that. It doesn't mean we abandon the platform. I still think it's best to use the platforms to the extent that we can to make whatever impact we can get. But we've got to continue building. And this is part of what I'm hoping to talk to Cenk Uygur about later today. So that's the latest. Facebook going fully MAGA, content moderation moving from California to Texas. And Friday, we'll dig in more detail to the end of the Facebook fact-checking program. Experience better sleep with the Pod 4 Ultra by 8 Sleep, one of today's sponsors. The Pod 4 Ultra is a smart mattress cover that fits easily over your existing mattress to regulate temperature throughout the night. You can choose a setting anywhere from 55 to 110 degrees. I like 60. I don't like getting hot when I sleep, and it makes a huge difference. If you share your bed, each side can be independently controlled. You have one temperature, your partner has another. The pod will also monitor your sleep and check out the patterns of sleep to automatically adjust the temperature to optimize rest. Snoring is no problem. The pod can gently elevate your head to reduce snoring when detected, leading to a better night's sleep for you and your partner. You can try the Pod 4 Ultra, 30 nights with no risk. If it's not a good fit, send it back. My guess is you'll try it and want to keep it. Go to 8sleep.com/Pacman. Use the code Pacman for $350 off your Pod 4 Ultra. The link is in the description. The David Pacman Show is an audience-supported program. The primary means of that support is by getting the full experience as a David Pacman Show member. You'll get the daily bonus show, an extra show every day for our members. You'll also get commercial-free audio or video feeds of the show that you can watch or listen to every day, hours earlier than the show is made public, and many other great perks that you can read about at joinpacman.com. Get the full experience, and you can use the coupon code NOTAGAIN. That is what we are facing. We are facing it again starting January 20th. Use the coupon code NOTAGAIN to save a healthy amount off of the cost of a membership. Donald Trump holding a press conference yesterday at Mar-a-Lago. As I watched these atrocities take place, I asked myself, are we seriously in for another 4 years of this demented nonsense? And the answer is yes. Yes, we are. One of the most terrifying recent public appearances by the incoming president, Trump threatening to use force against multiple countries, including many of our allies. I want to remind you that Donald Trump had previously promised to end the Russia-Ukraine war not within a day of being inaugurated, but within a day of becoming president-elect. He hasn't done that. And instead, yesterday, when he was asked, will you rule out using force against Panama, against Greenland, against Canada? He said, no, I'm not going to rule that out. The supposedly peace-loving president who won't get us into any wars, who's going to stay away from military conflict, saying, maybe I will use force on Panama, Greenland, or Canada.
Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty? Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
Yeah, I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this. We need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. I'm not going to commit to that now. It might be that you'll have to do something.
Oh, boy.
Look, the Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China.
And of course, it is not true that China is operating the Panama Canal. We've delved into that in details, but why let facts get in the way of a good story? Do not adjust your television. Do not adjust your smartphone. Donald Trump is looking as orange as ever, but he is sounding as authoritarian and war hockey as ever. Also sounding very much off the mark when it comes to his big brain. Donald Trump ranting about, as is often the obsession with him, heating and cooling, HVAC, plumbing, and other things. Try to make heads or tails out of this.
By the way, this guy loves electric, and we don't have enough electricity, and then we have AI where we need more, and he wants everybody to have an electric heater instead of a gas heater. Gas heater is much less expensive. The heat is much better. It's a much better heat.
Trump knows a lot about heat.
As the expression goes, you don't itch. Does anybody have a heater where you go and you're scratching? And that's what they want you to have. They don't want you to have gas where you don't have the problems of the electric.
Now, I think what Trump is talking about is that some types of heat dry the air. Forced hot air systems often dry the air, but you can have forced hot air that comes from gas or from electric. Really, it's not about whether it's gas or electric as a heat source. Trump, as usual, seems very confused.
And the source is plentiful. They're much cheaper to operate. They're much better. They work much better. They look much better. 60% of homes and apartments have gas heaters.
Yeah. So Trump then moving on from HVAC over to plumbing. And fortunately, he did not talk about that third element of the bathroom, the one you have to flush 10 to 15 times if you're Trump. But Trump did talk about heaven-sent rain and rain showers. Reportedly, Trump very interested in some of these shower heads they use for elephants. He really is just a stickler for shower and water pressure.
These people are crazy. There's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with them. They also want to go back, and they have already started that, to when you buy a faucet, no water comes out because they want to preserve, even in areas
when you buy a faucet
that have so much water you don't know what to do. It's called rain. It comes down from heaven. And they want to do, no water comes out of the shower. It goes drip, drip, drip. So what happens, you're in the shower 10 times as long,
Right.
No.
You have to flush 10 times and you're in the shower 10 times as long.
Water comes out of the faucet. You want to wash your hands. They want to go back to even stronger than what they have right now. As you know, I ended that policy.
Yeah, Trump is big on water pressure. Tens of millions of people voted for this. For a man who uses a press conference to drone on and on and on about itchy heat and drip, drip, dripping shower heads. Trump also floating ideas that no one involved with Trump's transition seemed ever to have heard of before, including the renaming of the Gulf of Mexico.
Mexico is really in trouble, a lot of trouble. Very dangerous place. And we're going to be announcing a future date pretty soon. We're going to change, because we do most of the work there and it's ours. We're going to be changing, sort of the opposite of Biden, where he's closing everything up, essentially getting rid of $50 to $60 trillion worth of assets. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
I like how Trump says, I'm going to be announcing this in the future. Well, you just kind of announced it now.
Which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name.
Right.
And it's appropriate. It's appropriate. And Mexico has to stop allowing millions of people to pour into our country. They can stop them.
Maybe the most deranged moment of the press conference, not when Trump, apropos of nothing, said he'll rename the Gulf of Mexico, but Trump was asked about pardoning the January 6th rioters, the violent ones, something Trump has sort of said, I'm looking at it very strongly. And out of nowhere, this guy needs help. He says, we're looking at whether Hezbollah was among the rioters on January 6, 2021. Who has even heard of this?
But that's not the way life works.
Mr. President, two questions related to each other. First, you said on your first day of office, you're going to pardon January 6 defendants. Are you planning to pardon those who were charged with violent offenses?
Well, we're looking at it, and we have other people in there. And as you see, I guess 24 or 28 people came now from the FBI. That came out very quietly. Nobody reported it, but they had...
It dripped out very quietly, like from one of Sleepy Joe's shower heads.
People in some form related to the FBI. They had 4 or 5 people that were strongly related to the FBI. We have to find out about that. We have to find out.
They were, didn't you guys hear? The FBI agents' wife's, daughter's, cousin's, preschool teacher's kid is very closely related to those riots.
About Hezbollah, we have to find out about who exactly was in that whole thing, because people that did some bad things were not prosecuted. I see it all the time, and you see.
Now, you might be saying, why on earth is Trump talking about Hezbollah? Nobody knows. Just we have absolutely no idea why, when asked about, will you pardon these American-born alleged rioters who are accused of violent crimes on January 6th, Trump goes, we've got to see what Hezbollah's up to. We really do. Again, on the economic force stuff, I hope I don't have my clips mixed up. I believe this is another instance of Trump talking about maybe economic force against Canada.
Mr. President, if we were to work under the assumption that you're serious about making Canada 51st state of the United States, the leader of the Conservative Party in Canada said, under no circumstances will it ever be the 51st state.
Maybe he won't win, but maybe he will. I don't
point,
care.
you had suggested.
Listen, I don't care what he says.
But Sir Lopez, you said you were considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force, because Canada and the United States, that would really be something.
All right, so he is clarifying there, economic force only to force Canada into becoming the 51st U.S. state. This is a president-elect, folks. This is a country with an illness. Tens of millions voting for this. Trump asked about Meta announcing they will no longer do fact checks, and Trump says, I think Zuck is responding to my threats against Facebook that I've made.
That's a nice return.
Meta announced that it will stop putting fact checks on posts on its website. And Meta said today it would stop putting fact checks on its website and instead allow community.
Well, I watched their news conference, and I thought it was a very good news conference. I think they've come a long way. Meta, Facebook. I think they've come a long way. I watched it. The man was very impressive. I watched it on Fox. I'm not allowed to say that. Say it?
Do you think he's directly responding to the threats that you have made to him in the past? With
Probably. Yeah, probably.
He probably is. And you know what? Trump's finally correct. I think, as I said in my earlier analysis, what Zuckerberg is doing now, turning Facebook into a tool of MAGA, is two things. It's number one, Zuck remembering the way that Trump treated Facebook during his first term and wanting different treatment this time around. And number two, Zuck just wants to be at the cool kids table like Elon Musk. Finally, Trump winds down the news conference by unleashing or threatening to unleash hell against Gaza if all of the hostages are not returned.
But we have to run it properly. It's going to be run properly. We want to get back those hostages for Israel and for us. You know, we do have people that are hostages being held. And I'll just say it again. If this deal's not done with the people representing our nation, by the time I get to office, all hell is going to break out. Thank you very much.
There you go. A very casual anti-war message from Trump as he walks away from the lectern. All hell will break out unless I get my way. Terrifying, scary stuff. We are really in for it. And just wait till you see how CNN reacted. CNN yesterday, in the immediate aftermath of Donald Trump's demented ranting press conference, attempted to sane-wash it. And it's pathetic, and I hate to say it, I'm getting the sense that CNN is attempting to do the exact same thing that Zuck and Facebook are doing. Ingratiate themselves with Donald Trump for preferential treatment. They don't want to be a target of Trump's when Trump is back in office. We already looked at clips. Trump threatened to unleash hell on Gaza. Trump threatened to use economic force to force Canada into becoming an American state. Trump threatened to use economic or military force to acquire Greenland and to take control of the Panama Canal. Trump ranted and raved about shower heads, water pressure, and HVAC systems, including heating systems that make you itch. Yeah. And CNN attempts to sane-wash it. Listen to this.
Mexico is really, really important to us in stopping fentanyl, in helping us with the migration problems we have at the southern border. Canada is really important to us, another NATO ally. We should not be gratuitously pissing these people off. Again, where is the economic benefit for the people who voted for Donald Trump when he's off, telling tales of Greenland and renaming the Gulf of Mexico?
Well, when the way he pitches it is, when it comes to Greenland, for example, it's for national security purposes. Is there any credence to that statement?
No, it's bananas. It's insane. I mean,
correct.
Again, Denmark, which owns Greenland, I think that's probably a fact that most Americans are learning, is a NATO ally, right? No, so it's just complete madness from a national security standpoint, and it also is antagonizing, right? What if some leader in Canada or Mexico is elected and says, Mexico, we want California back. We're getting California back. Or the British say, Mexico is really, really...
Completely correct, of course, Congressman Jim Hines, and CNN just doing everything they can to sane-wash this stuff. Here's another example.
And taking Greenland from the Danish. Where's the economic message there?
I certainly see your point about the economic message being a big driver for the election, but a lot of his supporters also just like that he bucks tradition, that he doesn't...
It's Trump being Trump, doing Trumpies.
Do what others do, that he's willing to, to throw stuff out there that may be controversial. And, he portrays himself as a negotiator and a businessman, and a lot of his supporters, frankly, like that. A lot of his supporters, frankly, like what he threw out about,
She's just playing devil's advocate, guys.
Renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
Pam, I get that. I get that. Politics has become entertainment in this country. And by the way, I'll be the first to say that there are some apple carts that should be turned over. It takes me years to get a bridge built in Connecticut. We're not moving projects that are critical to the American people as fast as we should like. But at the end of the day, the business of government is very, very serious. You know what we do, Pam? And taking Greenland from the Danish.
All right. I think you guys get it. What's going on here is very simple. CNN is terrified of what Trump will do to them unless they play ball. CNN wants access. CNN wants goodies. The CNN playbook is increasingly the same playbook as Meta, the same playbook as Elon Musk's X. And so we're going to be up against not only the Trump administration, it's looking like we're going to be up against the social media giants and the news media giants. It's looking ugly, but I think we can do it. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time, and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com, joinpakman.com. It's great to welcome back to the show Cenk Uygur, host of The Young Turks, author of the book Justice is Coming. Cenk, I'm so glad to have an opportunity to just have you on and to talk directly with you. Last time we had you on, you were on with Destiny, and we talked about some of the things we're going to talk about today, but I just want to talk to you directly. I want to first just kind of explain my understanding of the controversy that's surrounding you. And if I get anything wrong, you tell me. This all kind of started with some tweets involving Don Jr. and Elon Musk. We talked about it, where you expressed willingness to work with whoever if you can accomplish the things that you believe are worth accomplishing. We talked a little bit about whether it's realistic or naive to think these people will help us do that, but that was sort of like part one. You appeared with Charlie Kirk at America Fest with Turning Point USA. We'll talk about the content of that. But you've also been criticized by some just for appearing there, like just that your presence there was the problem rather than your goals or being there. People are talking about a political 180 like Dave Rubin, which you've explained is not at all what this is. And then I've also seen in preparing for our talk today, some conversations you had with folks that I think you were previously well acquainted and friendly with that are seeming way less friendly right now for reasons we can talk about. And a lot of people that say they are on the left don't like what you're up to. Is that a fair assessment of kind of where we are right now?
Yeah, I mean, the devil's in the details, and that's why we're having this conversation. But as a summary of where people think it stands, yeah, I think that's relatively right.
Here's my view after, knowing you for, I think 16 or years or something like that at this point, reviewing the appearance, reviewing everything you've said. I don't think there's any problem with going on right-wing shows or appearing at America Fest in principle. I think we should try to talk to the other side. My goal would be try to poach their audiences, try to expose Trump's not really the populist he claims to be or whatever. I think there's no issue there whatsoever. If I were to just jump to my concern, it would be all the evidence to me points to these are obviously not good partners in the things we want to achieve. I'll give you an example. Of course, I want to cut military spending, Pentagon. You and I have talked about it. Why wouldn't we work with whoever wants to do that? At the same time, no matter what shows up on Twitter, it's hard to imagine that Pete Hegseth, Elise Stefanik, Huckabee, and Mike Waltz are ever going to be involved in actually doing that. And so for me, it's more about how realistic is this thing? And is there a risk that your presence through no fault of your own is used simply to degrade the left with no real shot at improving anything? That's where I would place my concern, bearing in mind that I agree with a lot of what you're doing and what you're saying.
Yeah. So let me start by acknowledging that I get why people are concerned. Like when you see a pattern, and we've seen Dave Rubin do it and others, Tulsi Gabbard do it, et cetera, and you see what appears to be the first step there, that your mind goes to the second, the third, and the 18th step. And so like if you're on the left and you're just see us doing this peripherally, or you hear it on a different show and they showed you a 15-second clip or something, I get why you'd be concerned, right?
Yep.
Now, I've been as clear as anyone can possibly be that that is not the path we're taking. And I kind of tore Dave Rubin's head off when Piers Morgan suggested that we make up. I've got no interest in that. And what's hilarious is people tune in to the Young Turks live at 6 o'clock Eastern every day, and they go, "Wait, I don't get it. Where's the right wing turn?" They're saying things that are like super progressive, populist, left wing. What the hell are these guys talking about, right? So I would ask you to not believe people with different incentives. What's really interesting, David, is that when I go on right-wing shows and other comments, tons of comments that I get is, wait a minute, I think right-wing media lied to me. That's right-wingers saying it. Because they say, I just saw like 15-second clip of you saying something outrageous or something that I totally disagree with that they view to be outrageous, right? But when I see you in a conversation, the left is not at all what I thought it was, right? Because the right-wing shows have historically have framed the left as the most extreme, that everyone on the left thinks that, fill in the blank, that we should release all the prisoners and not, do anything about crime, and whatever thing you could imagine that's the most extreme thing on the left. Almost all the right-wing previously believed that was the entirety of the left. Everyone who voted for Biden, Kamala Harris, et cetera. So when they see us doing this, they're like, oh, wow. And that's ironically now the left-wing shows are doing the same thing as the right-wing shows did. Show 15-second clip and go, when you see a slight disagreement there, oh, that's it, he's a Nazi, he's fascist, et cetera. So I understand people who are misled by that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now when you get to the real things that you're talking about, David, so how did this start, and what am I seeing that others aren't seeing potentially?
Yeah.
So it started when I started running against Biden in the primary just to try to knock him out. You remember, of course, that. And at the time, you remember a lot of people said, "Oh, Cenk, you're crazy. Joe Biden is young and dynamic and the best Democrat to beat Trump." I mean, I had huge debates over that, including with Destiny and so many others, right? So we were 100% right about that. But what happened is I go on the right-wing shows and by the way, can I just tell you, why did I go on right-wing shows to try to knock Biden out of a Democratic primary? Because mainstream media never pays attention to the left. But if you say something on a right-wing show, mainstream media goes, "Oh, that's so important. Oh my God, I saw it on a right-wing show. It's so important," right? And I was able to bounce from there onto mainstream media, not me personally, but that idea. And it did help to knock Biden out, and that did help the Democratic Party. So if Kamala had run a better campaign, or if she just finished running a better campaign, we would have been able to beat Trump, et cetera. But so what I started seeing, though, when I went on there is, wait a minute, this right-wing base is not the same base that it was before. And David, by now, I figured out why, okay? Because in the old days, they only watched Fox News, so you couldn't talk to them. They were Fox News talking point machines, right? I heard from Sean Hannity that corporate tax cuts help the middle class. No, they don't. What are you talking about, right? But now they're getting their news not from angels, but they're getting their news from dozens of different shows. And some of them are anti-war, some of them are still pro-war, some are this, some are that. And now what I'm seeing in the right wing is they've begun to open up their mind in a way that we are not familiar with. So when I go and tell the left wing, no, they're beginning to open their mind, they think of the past and they think, oh, hell no, this guy's got to be the biggest sucker on planet Earth and super naive. All the right wingers I've known my whole life never have open minds. And they're this, that, and the other thing. Well, I'm here to tell you, you're seeing it wrong. Okay. And so there's a lot of populists in those hills. But because they're right wing populists doesn't mean they agree with us on everything. It doesn't mean that they are going to turn around and be like, oh my God, you're right. We should have full trans rights. No, what that means is right wing, like populism, the where it intersects is anti-war, anti-corruption. And by the way, even on that stuff, guys, I get it. Yes, Trump is perfectly corrupt and they voted for him anyway. But by the way, so is Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. I know that breaks a lot of people's hearts, but they've gorged on billions of dollars in corporate cash. Establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans invented corruption, right? And they bathed in corruption. So yeah, of course, Trump is also corrupt, but at least that base has an instinct of being anti-corruption. And so then when I go on the shows, I say, hey guys, for example, Elon Musk, remember, he's a donor. He's Trump's largest donor. And they go, well, yeah, that's true. And remember how you should be wary of the donor class. And they're like, yeah, that's true. In the old days, David, they wouldn't have said that's true. They would have been like, no way, our donors are angels and they're the greatest thing on earth. And you're the only donor that's a problem is George Soros and the unions, right? So it's a different dynamic. Like there's so many things that you asked. I know I'm taking a while, but I do want to address the other things because the idea that you're helping them or legitimizing them is absurd.
Okay. There's sort of like a 3-part thing that I think will build to the most important aspect of what you just said. So first of all, I think you are doing an awesome job at correctly identifying something that's a major problem for the left and that explains a lot of the right's success, which is they aren't doing, at least right now, these toxic purity tests the way that some on the left do. You've identified the right. If you agree with them on 5% and you're kind of sick of the other options, they welcome you, even if you disagree on 95% of stuff. A lot of the opposite of that is happening on the left. I think that's spot on, and I think it's awesome that you've identified that. I do want to talk a little bit about the whole look at how they've changed. And one of the things that during your appearance with Charlie Kirk that got some attention and that you focused in on as well is, look, they're booing Mitch McConnell and they're booing Dick Cheney. That you wouldn't have seen that in the past. I'm skeptical about reading too much into that for the following reason. I don't think they have any real idea why they're booing or they're not booing. Or what I mean is the following. Trump and Charlie Kirk right now are benefiting from saying we're different from the establishment. We're different from McConnell and Cheney or whatever. If they do a 180 on that today, at next week's AmFest, Charlie Kirk just leads the crowd in a cheer of Mitch McConnell. We got him back, guys. I don't think there's anything real about that. I think it's just something that they've decided we're going to say to create a distinction, whether there is a difference or not. So I'm worried about reading too much into they booed McConnell, because next week they'll cheer him if someone says to Trump, now we cheer McConnell. You may agree, you may disagree. Let me then do the part 3 of kind of where my mind is on this. I would argue that whether or not they cheer McConnell or whatever, even if we agree about the problem, the risk of the populist rhetoric as a uniting force is that the solutions are different, even if we agree on the problem. So I'll give you an example. You, I, some of the people at AmFest, we're worried about the power of the establishment and elites, the recalcitrant centers of power that are corrupt, and we're sick of them and all of that. We would identify the problem with almost the exact same language that the crowd at AmFest would. The problem is when you say, okay, left-wing populist, what's your solution? We talk about social democracy, curbing corporate power, using regulations. They will still say the solution is tax cuts for the rich and corporations and all the same stuff. So my instinct is, and tell me if I'm wrong. I want to hear, I'm open to having my mind change. My thought is, even if we really were in agreement about the problem, once we get to solutions, we're not even at all on the same page.
No, I think you are wrong. And it's very understandable because what you're describing is exactly what's happened throughout history, right?
Okay.
So that's media and political ecosystem that we all grew up in. So again, that's why I understand people's concern. Like, whoa, wait, no way. All the Republicans I've known my whole life are immovable, right? And all they're ever going to do is corporate tax cuts and tax cuts for the rich. So here's where it's really important to do nuance and understand the new landscape.
Okay, tell me.
So first of all, on Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney, no, they loathe them. You guys are wrong in thinking that it's a trick. I've now talked to hundreds, maybe thousands of MAGA guys. They're not, forget the hosts. When I talk to the individuals, the actual voters, the base, they have no incentive to lie. Have you ever met a MAGA guy?
Yeah. I don't think they're lying. I just think it's been several years of MAGA saying we don't like these guys, so they're on board. But if that changes, they'll just change their minds.
No, they won't. So let me explain why I think that they won't.
Okay.
So look, in the beginning, it starts exactly as you're saying, David, which is Trump goes, I don't like Mitch McConnell, for whatever crazy reason popped into his head at the time. And his wife is Coco Chow, and weirdo racist things against Elaine Chao, right? Now that I like Elaine Chao, I think she's terrible establishment figure, but you don't need to go racist on it.
Yeah, so, the problem isn't that she's Asian.
Yeah, that's definitely not the problem, right? So I know where it started, and so you're not wrong about that. But now they genuinely hate the corruption, and they could explain. So when I say like, oh, Mitch McConnell, they don't, when I get into the longer discussions, AmFest was really tiny, right? When you get into a 3-hour conversation on Patrick Bet-David or Tim Pool show or whatever, they all go, no, I know. He takes $1 billion from corporate donors and serves corporate donors. For the last 10, 20 years, as you know, definitely not 10, longer than that, 15, 20 years, David, as you know, my main thing is get money out of politics, end the corruption, bring back democracy. And so whenever I talk to Democrats and I told them, well, Nancy Pelosi taking $1 billion is also corruption, they go, no way, she's an angel and you're a monster for saying that. And whenever I went to talk to the right wing, they'd say, yeah, Pelosi's terrible, but Mitch McConnell's an angel and you're a monster for saying he isn't. Now, when I go to the right wing, they go, no, you're totally right. And it's not just because he's opposed to Trump. It's because of the money that he takes from this donor class. Okay. So, and Dick Cheney, they genuinely hate the wars. They don't want wars. And that I know that is so fundamentally different than the Republican Party we grew up with that loved wars, right? So now when you go to the Hegseths and the Stefaniks of the world, David, that's where you get into a really interesting dynamic. Now, in the beginning, Trump is not his base. Trump's not going to come out and go, oh my God, guys, I've seen the light, right? And I'm not going to serve Elon Musk or Miriam Adelson or Tim Mellon or any of these guys or the oil companies. No, what's he doing? He's saying drill, baby, drill, because the oil companies gave him a ton of money. He gave domestic policy to Elon Musk and foreign policy to Miriam Adelson. So why does Stefanik and Hegseth and all those guys, they're hardcore. Mike Wall's a giant neocon. Yes. Why are they in the Trump administration? Because Trump's doing what every politician does, kissing the ass of his donors, and that's how he's going to start. And if his base doesn't challenge him, that's how he's going to end.
Did the base challenge him last time? Like, what evidence do we have this time they'll challenge him?
So that's what I'm getting to. So, David, you're right. In the first term, which now was a long time ago, the base didn't challenge him at all. Okay, if Trump said something, they parroted it and it was over, right? Now, when I go on those shows or I put on X, hey, you know that Rubio, Stefanik, Walz, and Huckabee are neocons, and they're going to try to drive you into war. Wall of thousands of comments. You're totally right. We're worried about it. We trust Trump. Let's see how it goes. But we got an eye out for it. Like, they're totally aware that they're neocons, and they don't like it. So Hegseth is a different animal because he's partly neocon and partly like meathead, and they like the aggro part of Hegseth and the military part. But they're not going to like the neocon part. And if I'm right about any of this, war is where it breaks. Where the base then says to Trump, no, brother, we told you anti-war. We didn't go tell you to help Israel invade Iran. No.
I'm not even sure about this. And I think this is really, I don't know that this is an ideological disagreement. I just don't know that we're on agreement on the facts. I'll give you a counterexample to what you're talking about. Yesterday, Trump does this crazy press conference at Mar-a-Lago. During this press conference, it was like 30 minutes long, he suggested taking Greenland and the Panama Canal with military force, taking Canada with economic force and unleashing hell on Gaza, or allowing hell to be unleashed. That doesn't sound very anti-war. And when you look on the truth socials and everywhere else, it's people defending it, memes about all of the Americas in an American flag. They kind of seem to be just lining up behind whatever he says. I just am not seeing what you're seeing.
Yeah, David, that's exactly it. Because I dove in more, I'm seeing something that others aren't, and that's why I understand the skepticism.
But am I wrong about the reaction to yesterday's crazy
You're
tirade?
halfway wrong.
I'm
you're
halfway. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I know I'm out on a limb here because believing that the right wing is going to turn on Trump on specific issues where they have disagreement when they've never done it before, I get that I'm taking a risk by saying that they're going to do that. Right?
I question whether there is disagreement.
There is. So that's what I'm saying. So, and we're all going to find out with our own eyes and ears if I'm right or wrong, right? And you've seen me go out ahead of people before, right? Where I said in 2013, I said Bernie could beat Hillary Clinton 3 years before he had that historic run. I said Biden was too old and couldn't possibly win, etc. So now I'm saying, yeah, I see that disagreement. So, for example, on what you mentioned, just like I said, Trump in the beginning goes to serve his donors. And so he goes, oh, yeah, Miriam, like the Palestinians aren't slaughtered enough. I'll slaughter them even more, right? As long as you keep the money coming, right? And he engages in his fantasies about buying Greenland or invading in Panama, etc. So the first reaction that folks are going to have is we're defending Trump. And especially when the left attacks him, no, he doesn't mean invading Greenland. He means buying Greenland. He doesn't mean this, he means that. So will you get tons of that, 80% of that? Yes, right? And it's not quite 50-50. But do I see the 20% that is going, no, you're right. We didn't say invade any countries. We said anti-war. So that kernel already exists and we're not even at day one. And when he actually, and what the number one thing they say is, guys, cut it out. He's obviously bluffing, right? And you're hurting his chances of bluffing when you say that he's definitely not going to do it, right? So, if he goes to invade Greenland, he will definitely lose half his base. That is mental, right? And they are actually anti-war. So, but that's not going to happen because he's not going to do that. He's bluffing, right? But look, this is where I think the rubber hits the road. And this is now I'm really out on a limb. Okay.
Okay.
I think his base is going to turn on Israel. And so when he goes, I'm going to give Israel another $30 billion and I'm going to help them bomb more countries. At some point, MAGA's going to go, now that's enough, brother, man. That's enough. We said America first, not Israel first. And so I think they're going to turn on that. And that's the right wing's never turned on Israel. The left wing's never really turned on Israel. No one's allowed to turn on Israel in America. But when you tell the right wing you're not allowed to do something, okay, let's see what happens. So again, we'll see. I get that I'm predicting unprecedented things, but I'm doing that based on what I'm actually seeing on the ground.
Listen, my best assessment in having reviewed all of the evidence and in talking to you here is I think it's clear you're not doing a Dave Rubin. I think your heart's in the right place. I think retrospectively, here's my prediction. I'm not big on predictions. I think in a few years you'll say, I was a little naive with my expectations. And I could be wrong, you could be wrong, we don't know. I think if there's a fault here, we've seen, you're right, it's been a long time. And for 8-9 years, almost 10 years now, since Trump came down the escalator and said Mexicans are rapists, the highest value has been they ultimately do support whatever Trump wants. They don't really care about free speech or freedom or family values or money in politics. That's what we've seen for the last 9.5 years. I hear you saying it's going to change, but we are on the same page that it hasn't been that way, right? I think that part we do agree on.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could list you dozens of examples where they say they're against cancel culture, and then they'll say, well, we should cancel them, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, look, but to be fair, the Democrats did the same thing. We're against cancel culture, but if you criticize Israel on a college campus, we're going to arrest you and take away your diploma. That sounds like cancel culture to me, right? So, I mean, but I can give you dozens of other examples. Oh, you're protesting oil companies, pipelines. We're going to pass a law in Florida that says we could run you over in our cars, right? I mean, it doesn't get any more cancel culture than murdering someone with your cars because they protested an oil company, right? So, and freedom of speech, they take away freedom of speech all the time. So I totally agree that the last 9.5 years, they have not shown what I am seeing that they're going to do in the future. And I totally agree with you, David, that we're going to come back 2-3 years from now and see how this went, and see, hey, was I right that there was this, that their composition had changed and they were more open to a rebellion against Trump and actually had a mind of their own as opposed to being in a cult for Trump. And I get if you're on the left that you're like, no way, they're in a cult, etc. But guys, remember, we all live in bubbles. The Trump people have been in a massive bubble for a long time, right?
Yes.
But we've also been in a bubble. And our bubble says, if you disagree with any of us 5%, we kick you out of that bubble and we call you a racist and a fascist and every word in the dictionary. And then we go, oh my God, how did we lose the popular vote? Well, you lost the popular vote because you pushed everyone out.
Yep.
Okay. And
no denying that. I'm with you 110% on that. That's for sure.
Yeah. And MAGA, when they hear me say things that they didn't even, you know that MAGA doesn't realize we're anti-corruption, the left is anti-corruption. They don't even realize the left is anti-war because Kamala Harris was like, Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney are my best friends. I'm going to go on a college campus tour with them, right? So the establishment is pro-war, and the Democratic Party, unfortunately, has become more establishment, right? So they look at it and they're super surprised that the left thinks is anti-war, anti-corruption, and all these things, right? When I talk to them about paid family leave, Patrick Bet-David polled his audience. 75% of his audience said yes, paid family leave. 12 weeks off for moms after they have a baby. That's arguably a conservative principle. I think it's a giant progressive principle. We know it's a giant progressive principle, but that's where the unity can come. But you can't pass any of these things or even have hope of passing any of these things if you tell the people who are in charge, who won the popular vote, we're going to hate all of you. We're never going to work with you. We're never even going to talk to you. So we have no hope of ever winning those votes back because you can't win them back if you're not talking to them, right? So but we don't live in a bubble. No, we also live in a bubble. And our bubble needs to be burst because unfortunately, some portion of the left has stopped being open-minded. And what I say on Young Turks all the time is our community is open-minded and open-hearted, right? We're trying to do the right thing and we're trying to get there no matter what. And what I would ask all of you is eyes on the prize. The prize is policy. If you pass policy, you improve actual people's lives. If you don't, all of us in media and politics are just playing ego games. Who's bigger? Who's this? Who's more pure? Who's the one that represents blah, 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 blah. That's all about ego. But actually getting policy passed affects your life. And you're not going to get policy passed going into your little bubble and calling everyone outside the bubble a fascist.
We know that won't work. That's for sure. Listen, Cenk, I appreciate you being on. I hope you're right about the vast majority of what you're saying. I fear you are wrong, but time will tell us, and then we will soon see. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
If you value what we do at The David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind-the-scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. We have increasingly more and more reporting daily at this point that Donald Trump is increasingly complaining about and growing furious with Elon Musk's endless presence at Mar-a-Lago. And indeed, Donald Trump is very upset about the entire President Musk thing. After months of getting close, the relationship between Trump and his so-called first buddy has become fraught, according to a New York Times reporter, per The Independent. President-elect Donald Trump has been complaining about his first buddy, Elon Musk, behind closed doors, according to a reporter. Trump and Musk have become close. with the tech billionaire reportedly staying at a cottage. How nice, how quaint. Just a few hundred feet away from the main house at Mar-a-Lago. Trump, of course, has selected Musk to co-lead Doge. But there's trouble in paradise, according to New York Times reporter Maggie Haberman. Quote, Trump does complain a bit to people about how Musk is around a lot, she said to Kara Swisher on Monday. Musk has been a major donor to Trump this campaign cycle, and he's sort of tied into various areas around Trump, which make things more complicated. Musk seems more willing to irritate Trump than a lot of other people have been, and less concerned about what it might mean. It's a fraught relationship and has potential for becoming even more so. But the president-elect swiftly addressed the President Musk thing during a speech. No, he's not taking the presidency. That's not happening. Asked how Trump has been reacting to President Musk, Haberman said it definitely bothers him. Trump's not a wind-up toy, but there certainly are very specific things that can zotz him. But she predicted once Trump takes office, this is going to change. I don't anticipate Musk is going to have an office in the West Wing or have a pass to walk freely in the White House. Trump keeps people around for a long time if they are of use to him, and he almost never totally closes the door to somebody. Musk comes with something that Bannon did not, which is a lot of money, and that buys him time. Yeah, this is something that I spoke about yesterday, in fact, which is as you see Steve Bannon increasingly taking the anti-Musk approach. Part of this is Bannon is just jealous. Bannon would love to have the access he once had. He sees Musk getting it, so now he comes up with seemingly objective reasons why it's bad. Musk is, this elite billionaire, unelected bureaucrat, whatever. But a lot of what's going on here is that just by the sheer fact of it, Musk can offer two things that Bannon does not. Musk is way more famous than Bannon, and Musk is way wealthier than Bannon. And to a degree, he's probably also more popular. I mean, there are people that like Musk not because of his political. There are some that like Musk for politics, some that like Musk for X, some that like Musk for Tesla, some for SpaceX. So there's three things that Musk has that Bannon doesn't, that Trump really values. And it does seem to all be coming to a head. It also is this sort of impending crash, head-on collision, because from a personality standpoint, even though Musk has many things Trump loves, those are also things that make him a liability. Trump loves being around the in crowd and the popular kids until they take away too much attention from Trump. Trump loves being around the super wealthy until their wealth less directly benefits Trump and starts to get them the attention that Trump so craves. So it is no surprise whatsoever that this is rapidly heading towards a disaster. I would love to see the left, to the degree that we can, continue to play this up more. I would love to see someone sneak in, President Musk signs to Trump's to that rally on the 19th that Trump's holding. One other note on this. The reality that Trump is privately complaining about Musk, but publicly saying it's all good, he's great, I'm not mad at him, he's not trying to be president. It sort of is a signal as to who holds the power in the relationship. And if Trump is only willing to complain about Musk privately, it actually points to Musk having significantly more power here than Trump would like to admit. It increasingly genuinely seems like Musk is in control here. I want to make an analogy. The rhetoric that Don Jr. and Trump and other MAGA-Potamians are using about Greenland is very similar to Putin's language about Crimea in times past, and even his language about Ukraine more recently. We're going to look at a clip of an interview that Don Jr. did last night with Sean Hannity, presumably after getting back from his couple of hours on the ground in Greenland yesterday, and listen to the things that Hannity and Don Jr. say about Greenland. These are direct echoes of rhetoric we previously heard from Putin about Crimea. Take a listen, then I'll explain.
If you look at Greenland, for example, if the people there are being treated horribly, I would bet the people would probably vote for an alliance with the U.S. And guess what? I think it would be in their best interest. Or if you want to talk about Canada, Canada doesn't have American money, Donald Jr., guess what? They're in trouble. If they don't have a trade deficit with us.
They're not being treated well. They have a financial problem. They have a trade problem. Yeah, Trump might use force to take Greenland, but it would be all in their best interest, just like Crimea benefited from Putin's belligerence, just like Ukraine would be better off if Russia took it over.
They're in trouble.
Well, 100%. I think all of these nations, what we've watched over the last 4 years, Sean, is when America is weak, when we don't have leadership, when in whatever leadership we do have is feckless, the world goes to hell. It crumbles. Dictators take advantage of it. People invade their neighbors. When America leads with resolve and with strength and from the front, we can do amazing things. Not just
if you look at Green.
This is the exact same story. It's for global security, as Putin has argued his belligerence with Crimea and Ukraine are. It's for regional stability, as Putin has argued, and it's another one of these arguments. The MAGA people are floating around this map of it's basically from Mexico up through Greenland with an American flag, including Canada, including Greenland. It's for everyone's benefit. We just might have to kind of start a war to do it. Here's one more clip. And of course, this, again, so similar to the stuff Putin has done in the past. Don Jr. saying the people in Greenland, they love Trump. They'd rather be part of the United States rather than being a possession of Denmark.
Just amazing. They're obviously part of Denmark, but Denmark doesn't allow them to utilize their natural resources. So many of these young kids coming up and telling us on a daily basis, when we go to Denmark, we're treated like second and third class citizens. They tell us to go home.
By the way, do you think for a second, if the United States took Greenland by force, do you think Greenlanders are going to be treated just like Don Jr. and other American-born citizens if they come to the United States? Of course not.
To be quite a bit of racism there. And they just want to live their best life just like we want to live ours in America and utilize the resources that we have in the ground. Not surprisingly, Sean, the Danish media, they tell us, has spent a long time, ever since my father started talking about this in his first administration, creating very negative views about America to try to create the narrative and create a sentiment against this from happening. But from what I saw on the ground, and we were there basically the entirety of the daylight there, which is short this time of year, but still amazing. Everyone was really into this concept.
Yeah. If you want an idea of how well Trump would regard Greenlanders if the U.S. took Greenland by force and made it a possession of sorts, it would be just like how Trump views Puerto Rico, which is confused about who the president of Puerto Rico is. Remember when Trump said, I just spoke to the president of Puerto Rico? That's Trump, of course. It was Trump at the time. As well as not understanding that Puerto Ricans are American citizens. If you want a model of how well the Greenlanders would be treated by Trump in such a scenario, you need only look at his perspective on Puerto Ricans throughout his presidency. So similar rhetoric, chilling rhetoric that we are hearing about Greenland, very similar to what we've heard from Putin about Crimea and his other belligerent incursions. It's not good. It's not good. Today on the bonus show, we will talk about New York City congestion pricing. So controversial. Other cities considering it. Some people like it. Some people don't. We are also going to talk about the Biden administration banning unpaid medical bills from appearing on credit reports. A very interesting decision. And finally, Skip Bayless reportedly offered a former Fox Sports hairstylist $1.5 million for sex. This is one of the wackiest Me Too style detailed lawsuits that we've seen. And we will discuss all of these stories and more on the bonus show. Sign up at joinpacman.com and remember to pre-order my forthcoming book, The Echo Machine, at davidpacman.com/books. We did it. We surpassed 5,000 pre-orders. I'll keep you posted on the numbers. See you on the bonus show. Thanks a lot for watching today's show. I just want to take a second to tell you about today's sponsors. Introducing the award-winning Pod 4 Ultra from 8 Sleep, a high-tech mattress cover you can easily add to your existing mattress. The pod changes the temperature of your mattress. You can set it anywhere from 55 to 110 degrees, letting you and your partner set different temperatures on each side. I keep mine at 60 so that I don't get hot. It can also adjust the position of your mattress to reduce snoring, and you get 30 days to try and decide if you love it. Go to 8sleep.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman to get $350 off your Pod 4 Ultra. The link is in the description.